The meeting will come to order. Roll call, please, Paige.
Commissioner Conant.
Present.
Commissioner Ziegenmeier. Here. Commissioner Boomgarden.
Here.
Commissioner Wooten.
Here.
Commissioner Munger. Here. Commissioner Cochran.
Here.
Commissioner Elphick. Here. Commissioner Baines. Present. Commissioner Espandola. Have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion, please, for the agenda.
Second.
Record moved and second that the agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, under public comment, Heather Esmond would like to speak on the public comment.
So, let's see if I can get this up high enough. Can you hear me? Great. So my name's Heather Esmond. I live in Yuba City on Lincoln Road, kind of the corner of Lincoln and Sanborn. And where's my notes? Sorry. At the March meeting, or the last meeting, I spoke to you about the lack of coordination in the development of county lands now annexed into the city of Yuba City. Immediately after I spoke, a woman located in the Kells West Ranch area, which is what you were annexing, was zoned as light industrial. This was done in some past meeting. I don't know if it was here. I don't know if it was at the city or at the county, without consideration of what is currently in the area. For example, according to the Lincoln East specific plan created around 2010 or 2006, the Siri Guru Ninak Tam, I don't know if I'm saying this right, sorry, Temple on Sanborn is zoned medium-high density housing. Do you really think someone will develop this land for housing? Why isn't this zoned for what is on the property now? I also have here 3 separate plans that have an elementary or a K-8 school, I don't know which one it is, at 3 separate locations. So the first one, this is the Bogue-Stewart Master Plan, has the school on the southeast corner of South Walton and Bogue, just down here. The Yuba City Master Plan has a school on Bogue, but south of Falls Drive. And the Lincoln East Specific Plan has an elementary school a few feet north of the Temple on the extension of Morgan Way, which is right here. So which is it? What, are we having 3 schools? Are they all going to be right next to each other? What's going on? At the last meeting, this commission decided to annex a section of the south of Bogue and west of 99, which would have made an island out of the current keyhole, and that would be illegal. So to get around this, you made an area that's basically an island, but with a very small property linking the section to the county. So at this point, the Sutter Heritage Plan, which is a plan that I gave Commissioner, you're now Commissioner, Councilman Boomgarden, the Sutter Heritage Plan, which runs along South Walt and Bogue and was approved many years ago, can be thrown out the window now because you can't annex that in to the city if the property between that property and this little property is the one that's connecting the county in order to keep the keyhole and keep the annexation. This really restricts any efforts the city might want to make to annex the Keyhole and develop inside this area. I also saw on one of these applications, city guiding policy says maintain a well-defined compact urban form with a defined urban growth boundary and urban development intensities on land designated for urban uses. Could you describe that as well-defined compact form, what you did last time? The second guiding policy, which is 4.2-G-1, establish a clear distinction between the urban growth area and the surrounding rural and agricultural land. There's trees, there's agriculture in that Keyhole, and you're going to put nothing but houses all the way around it. This does not go with your guiding policy. Somebody's got to start raising their hands and asking questions. You need to read this stuff. I know it's 140 pages long, but a lot of it's just copy paste. And I'll be mentioning that in some of my other comments and on some of the other points. So please take a look at what's supposed to be there. And if it has to be changed, send it back to the city, send it back to the county to change the zoning, to change whatever needs to be done before you approve it, because you're the last one in the line, right? This is the last stop before it actually becomes annexed into the city or whatever else. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other under the public comment at this time? Okay, we'll move on down to, we need to elect a vice chairman. Our vice chairman abruptly resigned. So the chair is open to nominations for the vice chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay, been regular moved and second that Mr. Ziegenmeyer be appointed as the vice chair. Discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Those no? Done deal. Congratulations.
Through the chair, who made that motion, please? Munger, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, item number 5, minutes approved of the March 10th meeting. Motion and a second.
Move to approve comment. I'll second Wooten.
A regular moved and seconded that the minutes of the March 10th meeting be approved as presented. Discussion? Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Those no? Okay. Now we moved over to item number 6, which is the consent agenda, which means paying of the bills. Motion, please.
Move to approve comment.
Regular moved and seconded that we have the consent agenda approved. Roll call, please, Paige.
Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeyer. Aye. Commissioner Baumgarten,
Aye.
Commissioner Wooten,
Yes.
Commissioner Munger, Commissioner Cochran,
Yes.
Commissioner Elphick.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Now we move down to 7, which is the public hearing on the annexation. And let's see, we have Mary Webb would like to speak on this.
So back in 2009, late 2009, we were given notification
they were going to run the water line up Lincoln Road for a project further to the west. And we took advantage of that and hooked on the city water, which became a reality in early 2010. It's worked out very well. And our house and others were built in 1963, and we are still on septic systems. And at this point, my concern is you want to annex more land and eventually development. But my concern is I hope that there's a plan in place to get us off those septic systems before they fail. I mean, this is a lot of decades, and I'm kind of holding my breath at this point. On the annexation on Lincoln East, this looks extremely similar to the 2006. And back then, I had gone to a meeting where there were developers, and they weren't employees of the city. They had to do something with the development. They had pictures there and diagrams of what it might look like. And they had a row of trees running up the middle of Lincoln from Sanborn to the west. And on each side of those row of trees, it was 2 lanes of traffic was allowed. So my question to the man was, I want to know what's going to happen when you come down Lincoln to the east. Are they going to take half of our front yards? The front yards are not very big. My front yard the grassed area is less than 1,000 square feet. And my fear is they're going to come and take half of our yard. The noise, the traffic is unreal. It wasn't good in 2006. Now it is many, many, many times worse. The revving of engines. At 3 this morning, someone was revving their engine and flying by the house. And actually, the backyard used to be very nice and peaceful and quiet. We've got a ½ acre. But now with the noise level on even the other streets behind us, not even just Lincoln, but Sanborn and over on those back streets, especially at night, the noise is just terrible. So my concern is I'm not sure that this development has been well thought out as far as traffic. So I take it my 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Yes, consideration please for the traffic, because I don't think we can take much more.
Ms. Eastman, you want to talk on this one too?
Yeah, so I live right next to Mary, and I can say basically the same thing. So this development here, and if you read the plan, so the first thing was we both went to the city to try to find out what's going to happen and what's going to impact our properties, because if you look at that plan, you'll see at the very northeastern corner, that's us on Lincoln. There's several houses there. And if you recall driving down Lincoln, some of you, there's all the residential tract home development, and then it comes into a bottleneck for about 7 or 8 houses down. And then you've got Sanborn. So that section there, the city has no plans on developing that section, even if this gets developed. I asked about sewer. They told her a completely different story than what I got. I was told that sewer trunk there, that there's not enough flow on that. For Lincoln, it's all going to go through Sanborn down to Bogue and go out that way. They told her a different story. So if you think that either one of us are going to be able to drive our cars into our driveways once that's built out, with there's only 2 lanes on either side and not even a middle divider or something like that, then I invite you to come over and visit me in about 4 or 5 years. So within, what I wanted to really point out right now is within the last 1.5 years or so, this commission has approved the annexation of the Lincoln East-South Block part, which is about 300 acres, Kells East, Kells West, Baines totaling 263 acres, Newcomb Ranch, which is 222 acres, and then the remainder of the Bogue Stewart plan, which is about 2 square miles. This doesn't include the new development in the city. That's about 8 acres. That's the Yuba crossing, 145 acres at Harder, 400 acres within the El Margarita plan, if there's development still occurring there, and several acres along the Royo Ranchero road. This totals about 17 1,750 acres, or about 18% of what we currently have developed in the city. Do you really think the city has the capabilities to handle this kind of growth? The planning department couldn't even keep up and keep from losing my application to put a shower in my studio bath. It took an additional 3 months before they admitted they lost the paperwork, and I had to resubmit it. Everyone is singing the administration's praises, and I admit that they are nice and try hard, but if they are not even organized enough to handle a simple request in 2018, not now, 2018, when no one was building, then what are we going to expect now? I do recognize that they've actually hired somebody as a permanent planner here, which is great, but LAFCo isn't any better, and I'll continue my comments the next time.
Hello, my name is Sean Menard with MHM Incorporated. I represent the landowners. We actually have a landowner application for a majority of this land in this block. It's mostly the land that's magenta or red on this map, except that one piece of property that's on Bogue Road. So we represent them. They're all in favor of the city application as it is presented. One thing that I noticed on the agenda is there was a potential option to include or combine the applications into one, basically the landowner application into the city application. We would prefer, we request that the landowner application remain as a separate standalone application and move forward on its own. We support the city's application. We understand that bringing the entire block is the right thing to do, and we support it 100%. But we don't want to give up our ability to annex on our own. So one thing we'd ask is to keep our application separate and move it as a separate item on today's agenda. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Excuse me, may I talk? I was never given the opportunity to present the staff report. What I had was a series of maps and a PowerPoint presentation. And this will explain just what everybody's been talking about. Can I have that? God, I'm no good at PowerPoint, but the first, one of the blocks, I guess the block in question, we annexed the Baines annexation a few months ago, and it's pretty much was the bottom portion of this section of land. I guess it's a section. And if you can move on to the next slide, that's the Baines annexation. That's done. This is the city-initiated annexation. And you can see where it is, as Sean pointed out. There's also a few cleanup areas. There's 3 areas within that, the large one at the top and 2 small ones. And that puts it all into the city to clean that up. The next slide is the landowner application. No, keep going. One more. One more. Did you pass it up? Yeah, go back. Landowner initiated. There it is. You can see the landowner initiated annexation, which includes a few areas left out. And that this landowner application has 100% landowner consent. As you can see, it abuts up to the Baines annexation. Likewise, we have 2 annexations to Gilsizer. We have Gilsizer's a county drainage district that needs to be annexed for any development to occur for drainage. So if you can go back to there's a landowner initiated Gilsizer annexation, which is smaller than the city initiated Gilsizer annexation, which I think is the one more slide up. Yes, and you can see it's squared off. So that is, those are the maps showing the context. It's more like a picture within a picture here with 2 applications. We got a landowner application, and we have a city-initiated annexation that is a larger area, about 60 or 70 acres. It includes a lot of people that have not proposed along with the landowner application to be in the city. The the city, and I believe also is that if you have it rounded off and annex it all at once, it's just a smoother transition. And the city did the Lincoln East specific plan and adopted it, I think, in 2009 or 11. Back then, they did an environmental impact report and addressed the issues. And so they've gone through their planning process. And I'm not going to make any comments on the planning or their land use at this point. I don't have enough knowledge of what went on in 2009. But so anyway, we have the two applications. The landowners are concerned that they will be that if the city annexation were to go through and that there would be substantial opposition to this or opposition to doing that they would lose their ability to annex. And so there's those concerns. I'm sure Sean just kind of alluded to that without mentioning it. So I'm going to just stop there. I did the staff report. I did the resolution, assuming the city-initiated annexation would go through, but also in the agenda and in the report, we can drop to the landowner-initiated application if we need be. Remember, the notice that went out to everyone stated that you have the authority to amend the boundaries of any proposal before you, or you have the authority to amend the boundaries. So it's not like you're stuck with these boundaries. If you don't like the boundaries, you may amend the boundaries. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that and let Sean continue, or Ben continue on then.
Thank you, John. If I could just add, so there's a color-coded map over here too that just kind of reinforces what John just said. So if you look at the blue, so all of this area, just to start off, is in the city's urban growth boundary. It's in our existing sphere of influence. It's in the Lincoln East specific plan that's been in effect and established the land use and established a specific plan for this area. And so with that, when you have that in place, landowners can annex into the city. So through a landowner application to LAFCo, it's a direct application to LAFCo, and it's a landowner vote. And so the area in blue came in here a few months ago in January, I believe, that came into the city, annexed via landowner application. Since that time, LAFCo landowners in pink have submitted a application to LAFCo to also come through under a landowner application. And so what the city has done is that, hey, for smart planning, we want to bring in the whole block. It really makes sense that square it off for services, for response, for smart planning, that the best way to handle this is to annex the whole block. And so before you today, there's two applications. Ideally, if there's no protest or the boundary isn't modified, we could go straight to a vote based on the entire block and square it off. So it would be the pink plus the yellow. And so Doug Libby, the city's Deputy Development Services Director, also has some talking points just about the history of this area.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. Chair Cochran, Doug Libby with Development Services with Yuba City, here to speak with you today. As I was putting together my thoughts to come talk with you today, I decided to go back and take a look at the records to see when this area was first actually considered a part of Yuba City's urban growth area. And I found it was actually back in 1985. It was LAFCo Resolution 85-8. It's hard to believe that was 37 years ago. You know, you wonder if you could talk to the commissioners then and the people in the audience at that time if they would have thought that it would take 37 years for an annexation proposal to actually come forward and annex it at this point. I would say, probably just speculating, probably wouldn't guess it would have taken 37 years. It's important to also recognize that in 2004, the city of Yuba City comprehensively updated its general plan. And at that time, the city planned out its entire sphere of influence. Now, at that time, that was, if you look at, traditionally, that's been Pease on the north, Township on the west, and Bogue Road to the south. So the city planned out that entire sphere of influence for future growth. And they adopted an environmental impact report as part of that process. Fast forward to 2010, that's when the city adopted the Lincoln East Specific Plan, which covers the area that's before you today. And it's important that there's another chunk of Lincoln East Specific Plan that is a little bit further to the north. At that time, the city adopted an environmental impact report for that project, and it included needed mitigation measures to address impacts. Now, I would suggest that this project has been thoroughly analyzed environmentally by 2 environmental impact reports. But it's also important to recognize that we're not finished yet. At the time of a subdivision map processing, the city will have to comply with CEQA yet again, and likely tear off of the 2 EIRs that have already been adopted and prepare an initial study to address any further project-specific impacts that may be identified. Now, you might remember that on November 12, 2020, your commission adopted an updated municipal service review and sphere of influence update for the city, and this proposal is located within the sphere that was adopted by this commission, or re-ratified. Now, we often hear about the need to address transportation issues, provide more parks and open space, and the Lincoln East Specific Plan does this by putting the right development conditions in place, such as the Bogue Stewart Master Plan and Lincoln East Specific Plan, seeing them get built out where developers will make improvements both on-site and off-site, and the city will collect development impact fees to address these issues. Benefits to existing residents will include seeing sewer and water being extended to the area where residents can decide to hook up to city services if they wish to, or it will be available in the future in case existing on-site septic and well systems fail. Now, although LAFCo does not have land use control, the Lincoln East Specific Plan provides an opportunity for a range of housing types, and that's, I think, really important. And today, this acreage is needed by the city to develop and comply with its recently state-certified housing element update, covering the years 2021 through 2029, and meet its regional housing need assessment targets that the state pushes down to all cities and counties. Now, as we've heard through the media, housing production has not kept pace with growth, not just in California, but nationwide. You know, I was on my way to work a couple mornings ago, and I heard a citation on the news that said that nationwide, we have underproduced housing by 5 million units nationwide. And that's just over the 10-year period. Locally, over the last decade, both Yuba City and Sutter County combined have annually produced fewer than 100 dwelling units. Some years, it was fewer than 60 new units between both jurisdictions. This proposal can help set the stage to allow our area to begin digging itself out of the housing shortfall that we currently have. Now, as a requirement of the LAFCo law, as part of the city's resolution of application, a plan for providing services was included, and it goes through the range in services that will be extended to this area and explains how those will be provided. Now, I wanted to thank you for your time and hope the commission can support this proposal that has been long planned for, has been thoroughly analyzed, and is consistent with your commission's adopted sphere of influence for the city. Both Mr. Moody and I are here to answer questions that you may have. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this 2022-0008? Okay, then I close the public hearing for that. The resolution for 2022-0008. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
Can we ask a few questions to the Doug Libby? So Doug, please take the mic again. I just have a couple questions for you. So as you said, this plan was developed a long time ago, and it makes sense that we would develop the whole thing as one unit. I think you get some economic viability by doing a large one single chunk instead of splitting up multiple different ways. But also I'd like to know, were all the property owners notified of this and adjacent property owners notified of this prior to this coming to this board meeting today?
So the LAFCo law would require the notice to be given to both registered voters and property owners, not just within the annexation area, but within 300 feet around the annexation. But either the city wouldn't handle that, that would be handled by your LAFCo staff.
Yes, we did. We sent out over 200 notices.
Okay, good. I know that in the past, we want to have that changed as John and I spoke earlier, that is something that we're, after this, not this meeting, but in the future, we're going to change the bylaws to add that we must notify property owners surrounding, and we have to set those criteria up of how we're going to notify, the distances that we're going to notify, and, you know, possibly signage, that kind of thing as well. And Doug, this thing has, this,
Can I add something just real quick?
Yeah.
And this, I thank you for allowing me to interrupt through the chair. I think it's important to note that there was a previous annexation that there was concern about notification and the city's role in that notification. Because of those concerns, and I would invite either Mr. Libby or Mr. Moody to discuss the extra steps that the city of Yuba City took for this particular annexation to notify those that were in that area. Would you mind doing that, either one of you? Thank you for allowing me to interrupt.
Yes, absolutely. So with the city application and having inhabited area, we took the extra steps, so there was a city notice that was also sent in addition to the LAFCo notice. And so there's been multiple notices to those property owners and registered voters.
The effort, I think, and it follows a lot right along with yours, Mr. Conant, was to try to, we 100% agree, as things come to annex to the city, is we want to be as open and notify as much as we possibly can, understanding that you can't do everything, but we want to make sure that those folks that are within those boundaries, and if we expand those boundaries as the LAFCo board, we'll certainly consider expanding those as a city as well. But the idea here is to make sure people don't get, well, I've had one term, but I'm not going to use it, not notified. Blindsided, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say bushwhacked, but blindsided. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt.
so the next question, and I don't know if Mr. Moody or Doug want to answer this question. This area has to be annexed into Gilsizer. Part of it has been correct, part of it's not. Is that where we stand right now?
Okay, so right now there's a few actions on the table, and Mr. Benoit could speak to it. And so the way the drainage works in this area, it's right on the threshold of basically being in the Live Oak Canal or in the Gilsizer Slough. And so and as Mr. Conant, you most likely know, is the drainage ends up in the same spot. You know, it comes down, it hits the bypass and gets pumped over. And so based on the existing infrastructure and how logistically it will be served, we feel that it's best to annex that. There's a map that was provided earlier for the Gilsizer boundary, that it's almost this flex zone is what we're calling it. So based on how the developers come in, then staff, both Sutter County and the city, in coordination with Gilsizer, will then determine if it's going to go into Gilsizer or go to LAFCo, or I'm sorry, go to the Live Oak Canal. And so, so we're setting the sphere to have that ability, and then as those individual projects develop, they'll be looked at, analyzed, and figure out, okay, will they be annexed into Gilsizer? But it has that ability to do that if they need it. And we think that this is the logistical break for what will flow southeast into Gilsizer versus what will flow to Live Oak. I hope that explained it.
But part of it has been and part of it's not yet, correct?
The portion, the very south, so the very bottom right portion of the blue, that 20 acres has been added into the sphere. And annexed? Are we at that yet? Or is that on the meet? That's on the agenda today. Okay. So it might be get ahead of myself, and might have to pull up the maps from John's presentation, but so there's a sphere amendment for Gil Sizer, and then there's specific annexations into Gil Sizer.
And of course, when you annex all this into the city, when the development starts, everything will be getting city sewer and water in that development. What about the neighbors that are adjacent to that property? Are they gonna be allowed to get city sewer and city water?
It's city policy that, we're open for business, so we're in the business to sell water and sewer, and so
Okay.
unless there is a logistical issue, then we're open to allowing adjacent customers to come in, as long as they're not outside the sphere. But with this, everybody, anybody on Lincoln Road would be in the sphere.
Okay. Thank you. That was all of my questions. Thank you.
Through the chair. I'm new as a permanent member on here, so I have a couple questions. If I understand it correctly, sir, when you were talking, you said that you had the 85-8, 1987, and then there was an updated general plan in 2004, and it sounded like there was another updated general plan in 2010. Is that correct?
So the city's general plan that established the land use was done in 2004. And then this area, there was a further step where it really dove into the weeds, and we established the Lincoln East specific plan that really got into and it tweaked the land uses a little bit, and then really looked at the infrastructure and what those roads look like. And that was adopted in 2010, 11.
2010. Well, that was a little over 10, 11, 12 years ago. On this annexation, and I'm just curious how we're looking at how that is going to progress with sewer, water, and have we looked at, and I hate to say this, but LAFCo's, one of its first primary responsibilities is to protect agricultural land. And of course, most of this is all ag land. Is that correct?
So it is ag, but that is definitely considered in the general plan updates and through the mitigations through the EIR with the Lincoln East specific plan.
Okay,
And
now
then
I
that-
haven't seen the EIR, and so I feel very at a loss here. What about the flooding? What has that been taken into consideration? Is that in the 2-foot zone?
So everything here would need to comply with current standards, which you cannot build in a flood zone. And this area, maybe the very far southwest corner is under the 200-year floodplain, but my understanding it could be built out. And so it is not restricted by FEMA. And through the California SB5, I think the 200-year floodplain, it can be built out. The southwest corner, the whole area could be built out of it.
But it is in the floodplain,
No, it's not.
200.
not 200-year, but doesn't mean anything.
Neither. It's not in the 100-year or the 200-year through the
It
updated
is.
map in the
Do you
work.
know what zone it is?
It's in an X zone.
X zone. I can't even get insurance with an X zone. I'm in the X zone. I can't get flood insurance. So I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, or you got the wrong alpha.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, I was just looking at the map.
It's not in a FEMA identified 100-year flood zone, or as far as that SB, if that's the SB5 200-year, that's the gradient, and you just have to be out of that. You could build out of it based on the depth.
Yeah, I figured all of this, I'm looking at this and it's showing it all in a, at least a 2-foot flood zone. So I was just curious because I didn't think we should be building in a flood zone. So I may be entirely wrong, but that's fine. And then you say the tax sharing plan has been finalized. Do we know what that tax sharing is? Okay, okay. I'm very concerned, I'll just be honest, sitting on this committee for ag land and that we protect the people that are building out. It seems like we're building out for a bedroom community. Is that what we're doing? I saw a little bit of commercial on this.
This is building out per the community developed general plan land use. And so through
I know
the
we
general
keep going
plan and the
back to
land
that,
use,
but is that
that's how
plan-
it's identified. It's usually a community workshop that identifies how and what those agencies and what the people
I've been
want.
through it
Yeah.
before. I haven't been here. in
So for the
Sutherland.
schools, the parks, and then based on the need for residential, single family through multifamily.
What I have found, and then I'll give up the podium here, is that when you say, well, the parks are going to be built, of course, we don't have anything to do with schools, but all the infrastructure that's needed, it's going to be done on the impact fees of the housing. So if you have a very small part starts off, they don't have any parks and the infrastructure doesn't get done. So how far out do they have to build before those dollars are sufficient enough to meet those requirements?
So there are specific conditions. So using the example with the recent CARM, with the West Sanborn development, so the 20 acres at the southeast corner, there's impact fees for transportation, parks, and the various other elements of it. And so you have the regional and community parks paid through an impact fee. And then there's also a separate fee for the neighborhood park if it's not directly identified in that area. And so they're paying those fees directly that are updated and reviewed with staff to make sure that we're collecting the correct amount. And then depending on the size of the development, so if you have a big section, like a couple of those larger areas that are in pink there that come in, then you'll actually have the neighborhood parks built and or the community parks built with reimbursement credits for the impact fees. And so they'll be based on the development where it's at, we're collecting the fees and or having them build those parks.
Thank you.
Okay, I've closed the public hearing. Commissioners, we can approve 2022-0008.
Through the chair,
Approve it, refuse it, or postpone it.
through the chair. No, the one thing I want to say, listen to Mr. Moody up there, and I hear everything you're saying, but this, you see, I'm familiar with the general plan too. I looked in this, from Sutter, from my small community and out here. This is a larger community out here. Like, if I would have been a betting man, I would have bet we would have been having this meeting 20 years ago, not now, over this annexation. Honestly, I'm really surprised it grew this slow. And there, I was just talking to John over here. We're talking about, I am a firm believer in commercial growth, firm believer in all growth, that there is a need for growth. In my community, we only have so much growth that we can grow, just because that's the way the general plan was done. The same thing here. So we knew the plan was going to get to this point. It's already there. Now we're here 37 years later voting on it. And there's going to be I'm assuming you guys are got to be about a $15-20 million general plan update for the city, or I know for us, we're looking at about a $12-13 million general plan update, but that's going to come next on the road where you're going to be looking at that. And that's why when you look at a project like this, I look at not only we say a bedroom community, but it's more homes, and hopefully get some more commercial growth around there, and not just drive-throughs and little restaurants. We're talking real commercial growth, offices and so forth, real paying jobs. But I do like this project just because of the fact that it's in the right zoning when it comes to the FEMA. Because when they put out those maps last year, that pretty much annihilated almost all the growth that we had. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Through the chair, a couple of things. My journey with annexations begins back in the 80s with, and Commissioner Munger, I think, was parts of some of those back then as well, between the county and the city and special districts. So any opportunity that we can to square off land and eliminate islands and end up avoiding the Pac-Man, if you can remember that game, analogy of trying to gobble up little things here and there, I think is in the best intent and follows LAFCo intent. As far as the item in front of us, which is a city-initiated annexation, I know there's a lot of concern always with property rights. And it's my understanding that there may be some folks that are concerned, and certainly I'm concerned for them as their representative. But at the same time, as has been mentioned, this is a plan that's been in existence now for quite some time. There are other steps as this area develops, and I'm sure Mr. Menard, Mr. Libby, Mr. Moody could all speak to the other things that are going to be happening as this area develops. This brings the land into the city, and certainly there's a city-specific plan that goes with it, but there's a lot more steps that will occur as this is proposed for development. I also share Commissioner Ziegemeyer's concern about housing. Consistently, this area is discussed about not having housing. I'm not suggesting that what's going to go up here is affordable, because I don't know what affordable is, and I can't get anybody to give me a definition of what that is, but it is more housing. And it's consistent with the plans that are in place. Again, Commissioner Ziegemeyer speaks to the city updating its general plan. That's another bite of the apple, if you will, for what's going on. I know the city is involved with a traffic study, and I know there were some traffic concerns about Lincoln Road. And I know that as we sit down as a city and we work with builders and developers that are interested in this area, that these concerns will be heard, and again, an opportunity to address concerns. Can't tell you that they will be addressed to everyone's desire, but they will be heard. The last thing is that I know that when it comes to annexations, and again, this is the history thing, is there usually a lot of discussion about them, and we're hearing that today. And I think it's healthy to hear about it, but I also think it's healthy to reflect on the fact that this plan, even though it's 20 years old, it probably isn't perfect anymore, and probably will need to be amended some or a little at least. But in the meantime, it is what we have to work with as a LAFCo board and as a city as well. And so I'm in favor, and I hope that I guess we're taking the city-initiated annexation first. John, is that correct? Yes, he did.
Yes, I did.
So I don't want to stop anybody else for any more comments, but I'm ready to make a motion if.
Well, through the chair also, Mark, I think you're very much right by squaring it out, because we've dealt with islands and it just doesn't work, between the city and the county, and a lot of it to do with emergency. Who's the district, who's that? And it goes back and forth, but it's squaring it out, then it can be planned right.
So, through the chair, just one last comment and I'll shut up. So, two things. One, Sabuc has been working on these levees now for quite some time. We finally just got we have 200-year flood protection in all these areas. The final maps have not been approved by FEMA yet, but that's coming down the line probably in the next couple years at the most. FEMA will approve those. We assume they'll approve those maps. I have no reason to doubt that. And this development does not leave any islands, and that's another reason why I do like it. We have a motion and a second.
Make a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, Reckon moved and seconded that this Resolution 2022-0008 be approved. Roll call, Page.
Excuse me, I didn't get who gave the motion in the second. Okay, all right. Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeyer, Commissioner Baumgarten,
Aye.
Commissioner Wooten,
Yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cochran,
Yes.
Commissioner Elphick.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, down to number 8. Open public hearing for the sphere of influence for including 239 acres of Gill Sizer School District, and this is Resolution 2022-0009. Now open for public discussion.
Yeah, may I explain this? This is the sphere of influence for that property that you just approved, plus the 19 acres thereabouts of the Baines annexation for Gill Sizer. As you remember, we never did update the sphere of influence for the Baines annexation. And so we're doing it today along with the 220 acres for the LESP, Gill Sizer annexation. So that's what this is. And there's a map attached to the resolution showing the sphere of influence change, which does include that city's annexation. And then in the right lower corner is the Baines.
Seisman?
Yes, you have my card. So I'll continue. First of all, we did have a discussion at the last meeting that perhaps we could have the presentations prior to public comment. That way it gives the public a chance to comment on what's being presented, because now there was no way for me to be able to address what he said during his presentation, because you already voted, right? So I'd also like to say, and I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry, that coming without a PowerPoint and being able to, how much are they paying you? Could you please come prepared? Could you, that,
Are you saying I'm unprepared? Well, first of all, I delivered the
it's my
staff
3
report
minutes.
with everything.
It's my 3 minutes,
You're
sir.
incorrect,
It's my
lady.
3 minutes. And that wasn't a PowerPoint presentation.
I don't
It
want
was
to
just
argue with
some
that.
things. Well,
Through the chair,
please.
I did this.
It's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
How dare
So-
you?
Gill Sizer, I looked at the paperwork out of that, and I want to make out some points. On page 6, the traffic, it's my 3 minutes, sir, and I think that we need to have it quiet, Chair. On page 6, the traffic impact fees are to pay for street improvements. So I asked the city, Public Works and Planning Departments, and there's no plan on improving the so-called, well, I don't know if that's larger collector or whatever, the street, Lincoln Road, which is currently about 1,500 feet of undeveloped 2-lane road. There are no sidewalks, and even now the traffic is sometimes so bad I could hardly get in or out of my driveway. The plans I've seen only have main east-west roadways to Bogue and Lincoln. So also, the road, we have a special thing. We're part of the Gill Sizer district. We have the backyard gets flooded because there's a storm drain. It's a very unusual situation with our backyard, and we're going to see if we can't get something cleared with the city because there seems to be some measurement problems. But on page 6, it also says that Yuba City Police Department is discussed in the area immediately east of this plan, which is where I live. That's this plan right here. This is beat 6. YCPD does not do this beat. Why is this mentioned in this report? They are not responsible for this, for the area immediately adjacent to this. Why would they be responsible for that area? Or is all of a sudden now that going to be a new beat? That's not clarified in the report. On page 7, the Lincoln East specific plan, and multiple times you've mentioned that, but I attended the Planning Commission meeting and the City Council meetings where Ben Moody presented and asked that the plan be rescinded. So why is it continually being mentioned here? Then call it something else, because the plan was rescinded. Also, on page 16 of the packet, the population of the annexation at full build-out would be approximately 3,000 residents. Since 20% of the current population of the city of Yuba City is at school age, that means that statistically there are about 600 children in this area alone. And the current capacity, I called them today, at Lincoln Elementary is 520, and their current enrollment is 487. So how long do you think the families will have to live without a school in their area and overcrowding? Also, Elflick, she mentioned something about ag. There always has to be a buffer zone between the schools and agricultural stuff. So if you look at your plans, there's a high school set up for Bogue, which right across the street, there's already orchards. Somebody needs to start working on these plans. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand where these people are getting these ideas. And we desperately need another high school. Yuba City High School has over, in 2019, I don't know how it is now, they had 1,900 students. It was designed for 1,200. And it's the same thing with River Valley. They are overcrowded. We desperately need another high school. And it's got to be someplace where we can reach it, and it has to be planned. And the idea of putting it there where you're going to have people complaining because it's too close to ag, you're just causing problems. Somebody's got to fix this stuff. Don't approve it, send it back to the city, and have them fix it before you get it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm closing the public hearing on the sphere of influence, which is 22-0009.
John wants to speak.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Or are you just going to take public comment then? But either way, I'll speak now. But just to clarify, this I represent the landowners, some of the landowners in this city annexation. I also represent the landowner that's at the corner, which is also part of this sphere of influence. And we support the city's boundary for the gill sizer. It's kind of confusing with the way everybody is talking. This is just for the gill sizer sphere of influence that we're talking about now, correct, right, John? So the only thing we're talking about is modifying the sphere of influence for gill sizer to these boundaries. And we're 100% supported. We worked with city staff, county staff, and others to come up with this boundary and what Ben described as that flex zone. And we fully support that. And actually, we worked together to come up with this concept to better allow development moving forward. We'd like to see this moved and approved today, the sphere, and then the next application later on, the actual annexation. And just to clarify, earlier on our previous one, we asked to be separate, but when you approve the city annexation, it actually included our landowner application, so you don't have to hear that as my understanding is a separate item. So thanks again.
Once again, the public hearing on the sphere of influence is now closed. And so resolution 22-0009.
Move to approve. Conant.
We're going to move to approve the resolution 22-0009. Roll call page, please.
Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeier, Commissioner Boomgarden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wooten,
Yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochran,
Yes,
Commissioner Elphick.
Yes.
motion passed. Okay, down to number 9. Now open public hearing on the Lincoln East Pacific Plan, which is resolution 22-0010. Public hearing is now open.
This is the implementation of that sphere of influence to annex the
John,
120 acres in the Lincoln East Pacific Plan. I don't have that on. And so probably all of this would have been clarified if I'd been able to speak at the beginning of the item, which I would request from now on. That was one of the criticisms there. And so a lot of the issues that were brought up weren't really vetted at the beginning of the hearings. So, but anyway, at this point, that this one is the, as you can see there, that's the city-initiated gill sizer annexation, including that area that's within the sphere of influence. So at this point, I'll stop.
Need a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second, Conant.
Regular moved and seconded that it be approved. Roll call, please, Paige.
Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeier, Commissioner Boomgarden,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochran,
Yes.
Commissioner Elphick.
Yes.
Okay. Now we move down to item number 10, which is the annexation of, to the Gil Sizer District.
There's a separate staff report for this item. As you recall, we did an annexation Kells East, and we did an annexation Kells West, and we did another annexation called Baines, and you're familiar with all three of those. We weren't able to, at the same time, adopt the resolutions for the Gil Sizer Drainage District for these areas. And this consists of 262.58 acres in total, and each one of these have their separate acreages. And so what this, since we do now have a property tax sharing resolution for those three areas that were previously annexed into the city, that we need to do that prior to development. So they need to annex in for drainage services. So.
Motion.
I'll second.
Regular moved and seconded that the resolution 22-0011 be approved. Roll call page.
Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeyer, Commissioner Boomgarden,
Aye.
Commissioner Wooten,
Yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochran,
Yes.
Commissioner Elphick.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, item number 11. Open for the public hearing on our budget for 22-23 is now open.
As you recall, at the meeting, I've got to find it in my packet here. In the would be May, it would be the March meeting that we discussed the budget, and we went through the budget and went through the various items. The one thing that I didn't bring up that was explained to me is the cost of inflation and how that's impacting our budgets. And every day it's a different number that I hear on the radio or TV. And last year it was around 6.5% or 6.4%, and I heard 8.5 last month, 8.3 this month. But we know that there is inflation, and it's having it will, if not already, it's going to have an impact on our budget. We've had several years of relatively little or low inflation. And so that will impact our budget, just like it will the city and the county and the district's budgets. So anyway, I prepared a budget justification report now, and now I have the application that I have the resolution for adopting a final budget, which is in the same amount as we had approved prior to this. One thing I would say is that you should grant a raise for the county, for the city, at this, he's not a county council, a LAFCo council at this meeting. And as for me, I'd request I get an opportunity to renegotiate my contract.
You need a motion for 2022-0013 for the budget.
Second.
Is that with or without?
Regular moved and seconded that
hearing.
the budget for,
Isn't there a little bit more to that?
I believe that was, the vote was for, sorry, through the chair, I believe that vote was to consider the hearing. Or,
It wasn't clear from the language of the motion that it included the requests of the executive officer.
you'll have to,
The commission.
Well, number 13 is on the executive officer's contract. This one, it's just that I should bring back, if there's any compensation change for council, that should come up at the next meeting
Yeah.
as a standalone item.
Mr. Cochran, we need to do a public hearing on number 11 first.
And you need to do a
Okay,
public hearing
hearing's
on
open now
the budget.
for the budget.
I've not seen it, I've not suggested any changes in this revised, or it's not revised, but this budget that we have before you.
Through the chair. John, does this include the increase in cost of everything, our inflation issue on this budget?
What it is if we decide to grant any changes in compensation, we'll run it through the contingency that we have. As for additional costs, we do have a healthy reserve, which is a good thing. So I didn't want to ask the city and the county and the districts for more funds this year.
Thank you.
Public hearing is now closed. Now, a motion for 22-0013.
I made the motion and
Hang on a
Mr.
second.
Mugger made the.
We gotta have the public hearing first, so you need to open the public hearing.
Opened it and closed it.
I didn't even hear the public ask for to speak, and I didn't hear we actually opened the public hearing, but that's all right. I mean, let's just do it.
I did.
Oh, we did? I didn't hear, okay.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Wait.
We have to have a public hearing, have to invite the public to speak.
I just opened it for public hearing, and there was no public hearing, and then I closed it.
Well, I'm not trying to argue with, I didn't know whether the public had an opportunity.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, but I did hear when Cockrell did ask, sorry, you guys, next time, please speak a little louder so then they could hear it out, because what you're saying is you didn't hear. Okay, so.
Okay,
Why don't you just ask one more time, is there any public comment?
no public comment. Now, we have a motion and a second.
Never mind.
Ready for roll call?
Roll call.
Commissioner Conant,
Aye.
Commissioner Ziegenmeier,
Yes.
Commissioner Boomgarden,
Aye.
Commissioner Wooten,
Yes.
Commissioner Munger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cochran,
Yes.
Commissioner Elphick.
May I ask one question first? What, does this include the, okaying the, meeting for the contract?
He said he's gonna pull out.
No, that's a different
We're
item on the
committed for that.
agenda.
Okay,
It's
all
on
right,
the-
yes.
That's next. Okay, motion passed. Okay, item number 12. Public hearing is now open regarding the fire and EMS municipal service review.
Continue the item.
Ms. Eastman needs to speak on that one also.
I think that there's no public hearing. I think you wanted to postpone that, but that's obviously a foregone conclusion if there's been nothing
This is for-
prepared.
Are we doing the fire and MSR?
So
There's been nothing prepared on this for today, and we would like it continued to the July 14th meeting. I spoke with the consultant for this, and in mid to late June, we'll have a draft out, an administrative draft, and then prior to the July 14th meeting, we'll have a public review draft for this service review. And so that's really my comment on it.
Go ahead.
thank you. So do I get 3 minutes now, or? I don't need 3 minutes. So, there were some comments on this at the last meeting, and I attended those. And the lady that was coming in online was talking about how the grand jury didn't give them any help or anything like that. So speaking as one of the trainers for the California Grand Jury Association, who will actually train the next year's grand jury in July, that is not the job of the grand jury. The grand jury gives recommendations based on information that they've collected. It is not their job to create a report-like document that the lady can just kind of regurgitate. That's not their job. I think also the recommendations in that were pretty clear, and from the prior grand juries, because they had similar, 2 years before that, similar recommendations and findings. But since it's not been prepared today, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. And I expect comments from this commission as to why it's taking so long, because at that meeting, it was absolutely promised, was it not? It was absolutely promised it would be at this meeting that it would be prepared and ready to go. And it is not ready, even though the woman seemed to have it pretty far in advance, pretty much structured, right? The report was pretty much done. She had shown us where her recommendations were and what the recommendations were. But for some reason, it's still not completed, and I don't know why.
Do you want to know why she has cancer?
my
That's
three-
why, that's
What
why.
does
I'm
that-
taking your 3 minutes.
You're-
Give her another 30 seconds.
But it's your job
But
then
she
to
had
see if you can't
she
find
had
somebody to help
cancer.
her. What does that
Okay.
have to do with
It's
the
my
job
job
that
to
you're
have
doing?
someone when, whatever.
Well, then don't argue with me. How could you, why is he arguing with me in my 3 minutes?
I'm not. I'm just simply stating the reason why you didn't know the reason. And you're
I
right.
don't care what the reason is.
Well, then
That's
why are
not
you
the point.
asking?
You had promised, I didn't ask that. Did I ask what the reason was? I said
Yes.
it was promised that it would be prepared for this. And if you have somebody who can't finish that for some reason because they're ill, then you find somebody else that might be able to do it. Or you communicate to this body, and then at the beginning of this presentation, or the beginning of this thing, somebody should have said, we all know that we can't have it today, and that's basically a foregone conclusion, and demonstrate that as part of the record that you were willing to go ahead and have this postponed. But I don't know. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to clarify that right now, because it's pretty clear what you said last time between then and now. Thank you.
Through the chair, I mean, I shouldn't speak on this, but people become sick, all right? And we have a couple of people that are sick that should be here today that could speak on this. They're not here. They didn't choose to get this, and I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about county personnel. So that's one reason that stuff's not ready for today.
Okay, this is continued until the July 14th meeting. Item number 13, Committee for the Executive Officer's Contract. I'm appointing Commissioner Conant and Commissioner Baumgartner for that committee. Item 14, Executive Officer's Report.
John, can you use your mic, please?
I said I'm going to be hosting the LAFCo staff workshop this year in Murphy's for all of the staff for LAFCO statewide. And I am starting to engage with other LAFCO officers from other counties that are surrounding us. And we're finding out that there's not much difference here than there is anywhere else. We have the same problems. A lot of it has to do with growth. The difference is that we do have some places to grow, but there's very similar to problems with growth. We have also met with SACOG about their growth plan, and Sutter County is pretty consistent with SACOG's blueprint that they have already. So I'm going to end it at that.
That it, John?
That's all.
Commissioners, anybody have anything to say?
Through the chair, I will not be at the meeting on July 14th. My alternate will be here. Just want to let you all know now.
Okay.
I'd just like to talk about the fire real quick. We have some real problems in the fire issue in the county, and this individual that is ill, that's doing the report, has done remarkable work in the past for the county, and I believe the city as well. I think we just need to give her the time to get the job done and do it, and I think she'll get there. So, it's not, you don't know going into something like that you're going to have this problem, and I'm sure she didn't know it either. So, I'd just like to give her the time she needs to do the job. Thank you.
Through the chair. I agree with that wholeheartedly, that I happen to know this person. She did a lot of work for Yuba County. I worked with her. Very smart person. And I think she works very well with John also. So people get ill. What happens?
Through the chair, she has reached out to me on several occasions, just asking questions and just fire stuff based on my past history. So I know she's engaged, and she did not give the details of her illness, but did indicate that she had experienced some illness, which was delaying the report. So I don't think I do think that it's worthwhile to get a good quality, complete report rather than something rushed. And if someone does get ill, by all means, I think we need to give them the consideration and the time. And if it gets to a point where she's unable to, then obviously, John, we'd be looking to you for alternatives. But it's not like I don't think she's not been trying to get the thing done. And I, for one, know that she's been reaching out on several questions. So I just share that with the board.
Any other commissioner, anything to say?
Yeah, I just agree with that because I think she's probably taken this on with all integrity that she has. And I'm sure that she appreciates the grace that we're extending to her to complete her work. No one would like to be, pushed off and someone else take over on something you're really vested in. So I think we're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Okay, this meeting now is adjourned and stands adjourned until our next meeting, which is at 2 p.m., July 14th.